we'll give it about another couple minutes for any stragglers coming in. All right, we'll go ahead and get started. So just out of curiosity, who here is this their first concave? All right, second. All right, third, fourth, fifth. All right, who's been here all six? All right, some of you then probably have been in one of my panels. I've been with Concave since the very beginning. In fact, in this presentation, we'll learn Braun was actually built specifically to appear at the first Concave back in 2012. A lot of times when I give presentations on the droids, I tend to be more technical with how are they built, how do they work, you know, what do you actually need to know to engineer one of these things? And what I'd like to do today is a little bit different. I get asked a lot, you know, like, what is my degree in? You know, were my parents into electronics, and did I learn from them? You know, all these questions, because I also get a lot of people who think they can't do this because they haven't studied engineering or electrical engineering or computer programming and whatnot. So what I'm going to do today is kind of more my story with the robots, how I ended up from my beginnings to why I have more robots in my house than currently roving on Mars. So first, to get things started, again, my name is Wayne Newmeyer. I'm originally from a little town called Frankfort, Illinois. It's about 45 minutes south of Chicago. My dad used to build houses. He actually built the house we live in, and then when he got sick of that, he decided to be a truck driver. So growing up, when I was really little, Halloween was always my favorite holiday of the year, and we didn't buy our costumes. We would, you know, go around the closet, figure out, you know, what we had on hand to make our Halloween costumes. One I will point out is back in first grade. Anybody remember the movie The Rocketeer? All right. My dad made the helmet out of some aluminum siding and an old football helmet and the rocket pack out of 3-liter soda bottles. So I got interested into the dress-up stuff at a very young age, but one thing that has always defined me is I have always been interested in space travel. I had, you know, every time we would go to the library, I would get books on space travel, particularly the Apollo program where we went to the moon. And where things started getting very serious with that was my 11th birthday, I received a model rocket. And that's how I learned basically the kind of craftsman stuff you see in the robots and stuff. That's where I taught myself how to use spray paint, various epoxy, structural engineering, and all that fun stuff. So that's actually my high school senior picture. That is the one on the left is a rocket I designed because I got bored with the kids. And then the one on the right, my senior year of high school, they started what is, and still going, the Team America Rocketry Challenge, where they challenge high school teams to design, build, and fly a model rocket to achieve a specific goal. The year I did, which was the very first one, was two eggs on two stages to 1,500 feet exact, no more, no less. We built our vehicle and we ended up in the national fly-offs in Virginia. And then those are the two buddies I built the rocket with. So once I finished high school, I knew what I was going to be, and that was going to be an aerospace engineer. I was going to make a career building rockets. So after graduation, I went to the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign, go fighting Illini. You never heard of them because the football team sucks. And I started my degree in engineering. Now, up until this point, rocketry and space travel for me was always a hobby. It's what I did outside of school, where I would go to class, and I would come home, and I would work on my model rockets. Well, in college, all of a sudden, you're learning the math, the physics, and all this stuff, and you kind of get burned out where you need a different outlet. Plus, nerds aren't the most social people at school. So, going back to my early childhood, I was always, loved Halloween. So when I got to school, I had more than $20 in my name for the very first time, so I decided to make a really cool Halloween costume. So this is the very first costume I ever made as an adult. Cosplay wasn't even a term yet. This is a Jango Fett at a college apartment Halloween party. That was made in a month. I bought the helmet from a local costume shop for my 19th birthday and built the armor out of PVC plastic, and the jetpack is actually made out of paper mache. It was a very quick project, and I loved taking it out. When I went around the streets of Urbana, I got a lot of compliments. People wanted a picture taken, and I thought it was like the coolest thing ever. It's like you kind of became a celebrity. So over the summer, I found this website called dentedhelmet.com, and it's an online forum for the people who build Boba Fett armor. And I started reading up what they did, the various materials you can use and casting techniques and whatnot. Studied that all during the school year because when I went home, my house doesn't have internet. And then for a few months of working with my dad, I dumped a lot of money into the one in the middle, which it's not 501st quality, but I took that out and all of a sudden my picture started showing up on like the beginning of the costume websites. WTF Costumes, I think, was a big one back then. This is kind of the 2003, 2005 era, so like right when the prequels were coming out. And basically at that point I started getting known for topping my Halloween costume off every single year. So I did Anakin Skywalker here, and then I don't have pictures of them, but I also did like V for Vendetta, and then I did a primitive Ghostbuster pack. So along with my studies in engineering, I would do this in my free time. So after 5.5 years, I finished my education at the University of Illinois with a bachelor's and master's in aerospace engineering with an emphasis on fluid mechanics and rocket propulsion, which basically means I'm an overpaid plumber. So with that degree, after searching for a job, I was hired by a company called Orion Propulsion down here, which was a small 40-man outfit to work on their vertical takeoff, vertical landing vehicles. And later on we became Dynetics, so that's why I'm living here in Huntsville. because this is one of the nicer places to work where you can deal with rockets. I did an internship in Mojave where the work was nice, but there's nothing to do in Mojave. Part of the job interview was explaining to the candidates that Mojave sucks because they had a couple interns show up and leave after a week saying, I'm not coming back here. So when I moved down here, call it fate, coincidence, or whatnot, I moved into the Royal Pines Apartments, actually kitty corner to here. And lo and behold, my upstairs neighbor, a gentleman named David Reamer, was a member of the 501st, the Stormtrooper costuming people, and a very talented artist. So basically we met because I was working on a new Halloween project for my friends. A buddy of mine, Ethan, hadn't seen Ghostbusters. He's another Illini who lives down here, and we saw Halloween we were going to beat the Ghostbusters. So I decided to build the proton packs, and this was my first attempt molding anything. I actually sculpted this. If you were in my panel yesterday, I sculpted this out of a pie plate, a Pringles can, and some balsa wood. Made a rubber mold, used like the most toxic fiberglass you could get, and made 4 proton packs. And then over the years, we would start making more and more stuff. So this is about the 2009 period. So when we moved down, I knew of DragonCon. But when you're a broke college student, obviously in Illinois, you can't get to DragonCon. I had no money to get to DragonCon. So when I moved down here in 2009 and met my friend David, we knew we wanted to go, but 2009 was too soon. So the very first convention I ever went to was DragonCon 2010. So the picture on the left is me at my very first DragonCon. That particular proton pack is unique because the previous picture you saw was the proton packs from the 2 1980s movies, Ghostbusters 1, Ghostbusters 2. In 2009, they came out with Ghostbusters, the video game. And in the game, it's basically the real third movie. They had, you would start with a movie pack, and then they would upgrade the equipment through the game. So you have all these add-ons, and I was one of the first people to make that version of the proton pack. And at DragonCon, there is a meetup of the Ghostbusters, and I actually received an award, Best Representation of a Ghostbuster, because of my work for the pack. And then that kind of drove me to, I'm going to build more unique things that people haven't seen, and I'm going to compete with my projects. So for the next year, I started working on the project on the right, which is the Alpha Series Big Daddy from BioShock 2. That suit took 8 months. Again, I taught myself to sculpt the helmet. The drill actually does move. It almost broke my arm once. And I put this in the Friday night costume contest at DragonCon. Judges seemed impressed, and I lost to a dress. And when I went to the Meet the Winners panel, what I discovered is the judges were all seamstress, like theater sewing people. And they were complimenting like the winners' seams and stuff, so they saw the really crappy jumpsuit, because I kind of suck at sewing. Not that every nut on there is hand sculpted. So because I'm kind of a spiteful person, I was like, well, what can I bring next year that doesn't have any thread in it? Well, at this point, so after 2 DragonCons, at this point, after socializing with several other geeks, I was introduced to this little TV show called Doctor Who. So the fall of 2011, I finally was like, okay, apparently this is because when I first went to DragonCon, I thought everything was going to be Star Wars and Star Trek. It's not. At least back then it was all steampunk, Firefly, which was canceled like 9 years before that, and Doctor Who. So I started watching the show, I bought the DVDs and just started working through them. And then I was looking at my old DragonCon pictures, and it's like, well, there's Doctor Who in every single one. There's a guy with a mop, a bow tie, because this was right when Matt Smith started his tenure as a Doctor. So I'm looking at all the pictures, and I noticed there is one character specific that's missing from all the DragonCon pictures. There is no Dalek. Now, I've seen a few made out of like shopping carts and cardboard boxes and whatnot, but I hadn't seen a film-accurate Dalek. Like I've seen R2-D2s, but I hadn't seen a Dalek. So I decided I was going to build that for DragonCon. Well, I had to bump up the schedule because one day while walking through an FYE, I came across a flyer for a local Doctor Who convention called Kasterborous. I don't care how it's pronounced. So that bumped up the schedule where now I had to build a Dalek not by Labor Day, I had to build a Dalek by the beginning of June, which meant I had to build him in the winter, which meant I had to build him in freezing temperatures and try to stick a space heater in him to get him the cure. So that's my friend David. So construction of Brawn started about effectively the day after Thanksgiving. As soon as my parents went back up to Illinois, I went to Home Depot and bought the wood to start building the skirt, which should have been a red flag because that should have been the point I realized he wasn't going to fit in my car. But I'm like, yeah, I'll rent a van or something to get into DragonCon. So the cosmetic construction took about 5 months. Excuse me. He's mainly built out of plywood and fiberglass. Everything on him is handmade with the exception of the lights on the top actually are the same lights they use on the real Daleks from England. And I actually have a friend from work machined the aluminum. Now, the motorizing part was tricky. The Daleks in the TV show are tricycles. An actor actually sits in there so they can pedal them around the stage and move the arms. Originally I was going to sit in him for the costume contest, but I knew long term I don't want to sit in him because conventions are a big social outlet for me and I don't want to be stuck inside. So I decided he was going to be remote control. So I went to the R2-D2 Builders Club and started studying how do you make the R2-D2s move, because at this point I had no idea how a RC controller tells a motor to move. And reading up on it, I learned about relays and speed controllers and how to pick wires so it doesn't burn up on you. So building Brawn's electronics took about 3 months because it was a matter of getting the components and then plugging each one in one at a time to understand what it actually did and whether I had some noise interference. And for a while, the first prototypes went pretty good, so I started off testing him with him on blocks so I could see the wheels move without him running away, because Brawn weighs about 250 pounds. And for the most part, it worked really straightforward, except one day, about 3 weeks before DragonCon, he ran me into a wall. Because a relay failed and the controller gave a bad signal, so I had to upgrade a few things. And since then, he's been working fine for the most part. So Brawn's very first appearance was Kasterborous 2012, the very first one. Now at this point he wasn't motorized yet. Cosmetically he was done, but the parts to make him move were still coming in. And with the costumes I always got a pretty unique reaction, you know, can I get your picture, this is cool. Brawn kind of took that to a next level. So first off, that top left picture, 5 minutes after Brawn made his first public appearance, someone used him for a wedding proposal. I think that couple finally got married this year. And then he was a big hit, so he had groupies the very first year. I really don't see Dalek dresses anymore, I don't know why. And then a few months later, he was motorized, and then he went to DragCon. And to say he was a huge hit is a little bit of an understatement. Like, he had this circle of respect where everyone was taking pictures. And I would go to the food court at DragCon, and I could hear people at other tables like, dude, there's a Dalek here, like a real one. So I think mission accomplished for making something notable. Now, as I mentioned before, part of this was for a competition. Well, I couldn't put him in the Friday night costume contest anymore because he's not a costume. But they have the masquerade on Sunday, which involves a skit. So the skit was, we put Braun in a costume. He went on stage pretending to be the doctor. I had my friend Jennifer be a fake handler, and basically halfway through the skit, Braun would chase her off stage and turn to the audience and say, "It doesn't matter, I will win this competition, now you will applaud, applaud, applaud," and I won Best Sci-Fi. So now it's like, I have this Dalek, what do I do with it now? And for a while, Braun started going to a lot of different conventions. Like, he started going, I got invited to GMX and Comic-Con, and I think he's been to one or two more, I'm not sure. There is a problem moving them because I don't own the car that moves them. So it does become a little bit of a logistical problem. But one of the more unique things that happened was a friend of mine, Dan Valdez, gave me the wheelchair that moves him. And Dan called me up. Now, he was an acquaintance at this time. And a few months after DragCon, he calls me up and asks me, hey, would you let us have the Dalek in our walk the bride down the aisle in our wedding? And I'm like, hell yeah! But then a day later, I get a phone call saying that, well, a family member stepped up, but we still want him in the wedding. So I said, well, why don't we make him the ring bearer? Well, R2-D2's already the ring bearer. Why don't we make him the officiator? And then he can go, officiate, officiate. Well, Steampunk Boba Fett's the officiator. So being a smartass, I said, well, why don't we just make him the flower girl and he can shoot flower petals at people when he goes down the aisle? A week later, I get a phone call. Hey, Wayne, we need to test fit something on the Dalek. What? This is a pneumatic air cannon system. When he goes down the aisle, you press a button, a valve opens, he shoots flower petals at people. So this is really how I met my friend Dan and Jake, is because my Dalek was the flower girl at their wedding. Now what happened after that was he was a flower girl 4 more times. And then he's been a ring bearer once. There was a wedding here 2 years ago he was the ring bearer for. So after a while, he would go to cons and the weddings, but I started moving on to other projects. It's like, okay, I built the Big Daddy, I built the Dalek, how do I top them off? Now remember when I said I was a space geek? I went to the moon. So this was always a dream project of mine. Now remember, I'm terrible at sewing. It took 7 attempts to try to get a jumpsuit where it would fit me halfway decent. So that suit took about a year, and I put it in the DragCon costume contest, and I won Best Historical Recreation. And that suit even will put Braun to shame, because DragCon was a huge hit. It ended up in all the cosplay videos. It won an award. I actually got a letter from Jim Lovell himself complimenting the suit. Adam Savage from Mythbusters was stocking the suit online and actually bought a pair of moon boots from me. So the moon suit and the Space and Rocket Center ended up buying the suit, so it's actually part of their exhibit now. So it's like, okay, well, I now have
really top myself off because I really don't have a good way to build top of moon suit. And then the question was, okay, kind of what do I work on next? And at this point, because this was about 2013, well, something else happened. Star Wars came back. And I was kind of hesitant because for a while, when you talk about Star Wars at conventions, all anybody wanted to do was complain about the prequels, and it was like, it just wasn't fun to complain about the movies. And once the first trailer came out, it's like, all right, I'm having R2-D2 for when the movie comes out, because I want to do, you know, all the movie premieres and red carpet stuff. So I went back to the folks at the R2 Builders Club, and now some people with R2-D2, because part of the reason I didn't build R2-D2 for a long time is R2-D2, there are thousands of them. People have been building R2-D2 for the past 20 years. So it's like, it's not reinventing the wheel. In fact, I have 3 friends who have them. But I'm like, I want one for my own, so I built mine pretty bare bones. He's just wood and plastic. The dome's aluminum. Some people put all the moving arms and stuff. I'm like, if he rolls around and beeps, I'm perfectly content with that. Now, because R2-D2 is more or less built to print, I was able to finish him in about 4 months. And I figure, okay, I'll take him to a few conventions, but, you know, people go to the conventions, they've seen an R2-D2. They know an R2-D2 is around, because even if you go to DragonCon, there's like a little pack of them that go around. I was very wrong. Everyone loved them. I would take them to the smaller cons and the anime conventions, and people would stop and it's like, oh my god, can I hug it? Can I get a picture? And it's like, people like fell in love with him. And he started going to the conventions, and then with the release of The Force Awakens, he started doing the premiere material for that. So he like met the 3 of the people at the Space and Rocket Center. He actually went to my work's Christmas party, so now no one talks to me about work projects. It's, hey, this guy built an R2-D2. Now, I do one little thing at the conventions with him in particular is, because, you know, now Princess Leia is technically a Disney princess, I do make every princess at a convention do the Help Me Obi-Wan Kenobi pose. This is a little more depressing as it sounds because you realize maybe 1 in 10 has actually seen the movie. But then R2 started doing something that Braun really can't do because of his size and his role as a villain. And I'm going to try to get through this slide quick because I always end up crying during it. He started going to children's hospitals. All right, moving on. Yeah, the look on the kids' faces, like when you have a kid with an IV in his arm saying this is the best day ever, it gets deep. So R2-D2, if you're following along at this, keeping track of the timeline, R2 was built in 2015. So the trailer for Force Awakens already came out, which means people knew what BB-8 looks like now. Now the movie hadn't been out yet, but every event R2-D2 went to, I get the same questions. Is BB-8 practical? Are you working on BB-8? Is someone working on BB-8? I heard BB-8's a practical effect. BB-8, and at this point I was like, I'm not building BB-8. I just finished R2-D2. He's several $1,000s. The Martian just came out, which you can tell I'm a fan. The Martian just came out. I'm building that suit because it's a new spacesuit I'm in love with. I want to put that in the DragonCon costume contest. I cannot handle building BB-8 right now. Well, my friend Dan gave me a 3D print of the head. they were doing a run of the polycarbonate ball hemispheres that were the right size, and the Builders Club had the decals. And it's like, well, we better get it now before it disappears. And it's like, well, son of a... I got build BB-8. And one of the things with BB-8, which really drove me, is even before you knew what the character was, I'm an engineer. And you would see these discussions of how do you make this work? And you would see such horrible, wrong information on the forums with no understanding of physics. And you're pulling your hair out, and it's like, that's not how you do it. And then you also have another group of people basically waiting for people to publish the plans and 3D print models so they can just make them 1, 2, 3. So I'm like, okay, this is the time I really need to do this to prove this can be done. So building BB-8 is a little bit of a challenge compared to the other two. One, because there's no set of standardized plans, but the other problem is he needs a controller. In my engineering curriculum, there were 2 subjects I absolutely hated in school. They are computer programming and control theory. I had to program a proportional integral derivative loop into an Arduino to keep this stable. So here you see my workbench. I have my prototype BB-8 drive system. I made it out of wood. And then I'm programming it, which is a trial and error process because you have to turn them on, put them together, run them, and then take them apart, upload a new code. I think he actually did a better job making me Kylo Ren than him BB-8, which is kind of ironic because I actually just got into the 501st as Kylo Ren like Friday. So BB-8 took him to, he premiered at Magic City Con, and then if you were here last year, I brought him around on Sunday. And BB-8's kind of interesting to the general public because you get 2 reactions from people. Oh my God, there's a full-size BB-8 here, and then they see him move, and it's, oh my God, he's real. Because what happens a lot when you're with crowds is you'll stop so people can get their pictures. And then, new people walk up to get different pictures. Well, then you start moving the droid again, and now, like, the audience is like, oh my God, he's moving, he's moving. Plus, the kids love him because he's like that perfect, lovable height. And a little gag I do with this one, like I said, with R2-D2, I make all the princesses do help me Obi-Wan Kenobi. I do make the Disney princesses fix the antenna like Ray did. It's kind of like a scavenger hunt with these things. So then BB, because of his popularity and his rarity, there's about 20 in the world right now that are fan-made. So the one in the movie is operated as a puppet by 2 gentlemen named Brian Hearing and Dave Chapman. This is Brian Hearing and Dave Chapman with my BB-8 at Dragon Con. They couldn't bring one of the movie ones because of filming and logistics and whatnot to Dragon Con. So for the weekend, my BB-8 was BB-8. So that was pretty cool, and they actually signed me inside the dome, so I forget which one wrote it, but they wrote "Keep on Rolling." So after Dragon Con BB-8, again, we keep going to conventions. And the big one is there's one event in Orlando called Star Wars Celebration. And it's a big gathering of Star Wars fans. They have a droid builders room. There were 86 R2-D2 units there. There were 6 BB-8 units. 3 of them moved. 1 of them moved well. So here I have basically half of the BB-8 Builders Club trying to figure out how I made my robot move, ignoring all the other machines in that room. But then at the convention, what happened is because BB-8 is so rare, people thought my BB-8 was BB-8 because they don't know there's fan-made ones yet. Well, the folks at Lucasfilm were filming closing montage material, and they came across me and got my contact information, and then one morning I get a call from Lucasfilm saying, hey, can we film something with BB-8? Sure. So we took BB-8 to the front foyer, and we had to like cast 3 kids to do this, and we finally got stock footage of a girl dressed as Rey picking a pass off of BB-8. So if you Google the Star Wars Celebration closing ceremonies, there's this little film of that, and it's a official Lucasfilm production, which means my droid is in an actual Lucasfilm production. So it's led to quite a few adventures. Let's see what's the next one. Oh, and going back to the wedding thing, the 2 of them finally did their first wedding like 2 months ago. R2-D2 ended up being the ring bearer, and BB-8 ended up, no, wait, how's this work? BB-8's the ring bearer, so we stuck the rings on the antenna, and then R2's the flower girl. A lot of people I know with R2-D2s, they've done like 3 weddings apiece. It's a lot more common than you think. So I've been doing this, with the beginning of Braun, I've been doing this 7 years. It's been an interesting road. I'm not going to say it's a perfect road. There's a bunch of stories I wish would have a happier ending. And if you see me moping around this con, there's a lot of stuff that has been going wrong this year. Where you're kind of like looking back with, what have I done with the last few years? And you look at these pictures, and you know, some people think they're just toys. I have met pretty much every friend I've made the last few years because of him. Because I'm a shy person, he's the ultimate icebreaker. Kid in the right corner was a cancer patient. I get a phone call saying he wants to meet R2-D2. I took him over to his house. He said this was a dream come true, and unfortunately, he passed away a few months later. I actually have his picture taped to the inside door. And, you know, again, like my dad doesn't like sci-fi. He thinks these are just toys. But you realize how many stories I've got. I have made so many friends. I've made a dying kid's wish come true. I've made kids in a hospital forget they're in a hospital. I've made wedding memories. And I'm sure all you are going to be going home this weekend about how, you know, you met a real life dog. And it's been quite an adventure. And part of why I want to tell my story is because I know there's people out there, young people, old people, doesn't matter, who see these things, and I always get told, I don't know how to do it. I can't do something like what you can do. And you can. You just got to spend time researching, trial and error, get angry with it, and you can do it. Because I don't know where you'll end up with it, but if it's like me, you're in for one hell of a ride. Thank you. I think we got time for a few questions. Do I have a next project? Not really. The house is kind of full at this point, and I kind of need to figure a few things out. Come on. Yeah, in the back.
When are you going to make a working TARDIS?
When am I making a working TARDIS? I have nowhere to put it. I know consider leaving my job to do this full time. No. Now at work, engineering is a very stressful and sometimes unrewarding job, but at the same time, you see cool stuff here, but at work I've built lunar landers that fly around Marshall Space Flight Center. I've fired over 300 rockets for a different program. I've presented panels at propulsion conferences. I have put something in space. And we're working on stuff now trying to get to the moon. So I mean, I do like what I do as a day job. Now maybe when my student loans are paid off and I can, live on a much lower salary, maybe then I'll, look at this. Anyone? Yeah, you'll see me back at Dragon. I'm not sure what I'm bringing yet. The one thing I know I want to bring back is the Mark Walkney, the Martian suit, because a lot of the smaller cons, you're bringing the droid because that's what they want to see. I'm thinking DragonCon will be the, okay, I'm bringing the costume back out. Yeah?
How hard do you think it would be to make a functional walking C-3PO? Not saying you should, because I'm sure it'd be hard, but how hard do you think it would be?
Balance on any robot is a big, the question was building 3PO. Balance on a robot is a big issue, but even then the costume, you have to be a very specific figure to fit in it. And someone has to lock you in with limited movement. So you see a few people here and there, but it's a lot of work. Yeah.
Are there any projects that you want to build that maybe the tech hasn't been developed yet?
Are the projects I want to build, but the tech hasn't been developed yet. If I ever built another robot, the one I want to build is the Mars Sojourner rover Pathfinder, because I think that would be a great educational outreach tool. Why I haven't built it yet is it does require a lot of precision machining and modeling, and I don't have that skill level yet. Any more? Well, thank you.